Nate G 219 to Hell But Back and Better. Hope everybody's doing great, feeling great. It's March 26th, Sunday afternoon, you know. Been having a good weekend. Back's pretty sore, you know. I got a pretty brutal job when it comes to a man that's pretty much broke everything from the right side of his jaw down to the right side of his foot and everything in between, including the ribs, wrist, arm, collarbone, all sorts of crap growing up. Anyways, I previously had done two videos. One was removed, and the other one, it's pertaining to the gangs in Indiana prison systems. So I'm gonna redo it, but this time I'm not. This is gonna be my last video focusing on the gangs. Now, of course, there's gonna be stories that involve gangs because the majority of the prison population is affiliated with one gang or another, regardless of race. A majority of the prison is affiliated with organizations and or gangs. Sorry, I'll straighten my camera out, guys. So that being said, there's an abundance of gangs, and there's so many different kinds. And as far as white gangs go, okay, there's Aryans, there's Saxonites, there's skinheads, there's Rebel Cause was a pretty large one at one point in time. Now, the last time I was in prison, when I had left, there maybe have been 2 or 3. I remember being in that specific dorm, but I was in a disciplinary idle dorm just because that's where you first go, and for some odd reason, I always end up in those places. I think a lot of it had to do with my write-ups in the previous prisons. It is what it is. I only had 90 days in prison the last time I was there, so most of my county bid was, or my year was done in the county, and held damn near a month of it in damn the diagnostics center. RDC is Indiana's diagnostics. So I didn't have a whole lot of time actually in the prison IOIC the last time I was there, so I can't. I have some stories from there, but I don't have a whole lot. I mean, it was different. It was a larger level 2 than what Lakeside was. Lakeside had like 350 people for a level 2, 1/2, but there was two level 2 dorms and a level 1 dorm / honor dorm. But anyways, this video is on gangs and the gangs that run the Indiana prison system. All right, I'm not going to throw any dirt on any gangs. Every organization has weeds, meaning they have rats, they have scum, they have gay people involved into the gay activities, and in the prison system and in the organizations, that's a big no-no, you know, in a majority of them. Now, you do have cliques of homosexuals that are affiliated, but usually they develop their own gang and stuff. I've only seen a couple of them be able to do that in Indiana, but on television, on Indiana's Lockup, there was an episode that, and it was in a southern prison somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Arizona. I don't remember exactly where it was, but they called them the GBGs, the Gay Boy Gangsters, and there was at least a dozen guys I remember with GBG tattooed across their eyebrow. I don't remember which side it was, but they had Gay Boy Gangster tags on themselves. I mean, you know, you go to prison as a person and either you've changed or the real you has come out, and that's a lot of people fake the funk on the streets, and you know, when they get to prison, the real them comes up, because they don't think the family's ever going to find out that they were running around with their shirt tied in a knot in the front, flapping their hands with their boyfriend. You know, they think that their wives aren't going to find out, or whatever, you know. Anyways, but back to the gangs. So there are so many different gangs, and Indiana is so different depending on where you are. So, like where I was in Michigan City and Lakeside, I'm 30 minutes east, east of Chicago. Chicago is 30 minutes west of me. As far as Westville Penitentiary, which is about 20 minutes south of where I was, is also maybe 45 minutes from the Chicagoland border. That being said, a majority of the people inside the prisons, those couple prisons I'm talking about, Indiana State Prison and Lakeside, are the same, in the same exact spot. One part's outside the wall, one part's inside the wall. The outside the wall is a smaller camp I had started at, getting in trouble, ended up in the big camp with a few thousand people, 85% violent offenders, 85% of them never going home. So, like, at Lakeside, okay. And when we're up north, because of Chicagoland, you know, they try to keep you as close to home as possible, as long as you're not just bucking the system and being an asshole to cops and stuff like that. They're going to try to keep you as close to home as possible. When you get to the Diagnostic Center, RDC, they're going to be like, if you have a choice in which prison you want to go to, if I remember correctly, they gave me two choices. You know, I'd said Lakeside because it was the closest one to home, and that was my first time. Okay, nobody wanted to go to Westville, and I sure as hell didn't want to go to Indiana State Prison, nor did my points put me in the category to where I could go to Indiana State Prison at that point in time. So I got approved for Lakeside, which still doesn't mean anything. You do not know where you're going until you're on that bus. And when I was on that bus, there were people that had bags that had WCF. My bag, my brown paper bag with my belongings, said ISO. So right then and there, I knew I was going to where I had been approved, which I thought was the best thing in the world. So I walk in there. Once I get there, after this excruciating diesel therapy trip in the black box in shackles, your hands are, one's facing down, one's facing up. There's a black box that you're handcuffed, that has a black box in between, so you can't see the chain from the handcuffs, and your hands are locked like that, then chained around. You got, if I remember correctly, a chain waist, and you've also got your legs shackled, if I remember correctly. But that portion is 100% the way it goes. If I remember correctly, your legs are shackled too, because I think I remember getting off the bus. I just can't remember if that was the bus or going to court, because court, your legs were shackled and your hands were chained in front of you. But there was no chain in between. Back in the day, they used to chain you to the next guy. You had a few feet apart. And I remember when I'd get out of the van to go into the courthouse, I'd take a jump out of the van. I was able to get up and down out of the van without the cops helping me with the shackles. So anyways, ADD, sorry guys. I do apologize. By the way, hit like and subscribe, share, comment. I mean, I need some help, guys. I need some subscribers. Please help. And I get to Lakeside after dropping people off at Westville and behind the wall, and which is Michigan City, Indiana State Prison. Drop them off behind the wall. Then we go around about a half mile to the other side, and now the group that is going into Indiana State outside ISO Lakeside facility is we're getting off the bus, and I never remember feeling so relieved. Just now the end of my journey begins, and because my head was to get in there, get time cuts, and I didn't know anything about how I was going to function in prison. Like my goal wasn't getting in there and gangbanging. Like I said, this was 2012 or 2013, so I was already 32 by the time I ever hit prison. So I wasn't on rotation with the affiliation I was part of. But I walk in there, and I mean, there's 100 people, and it looked like I was walking into a pool hall because smoke was, 3 feet thick from the ceiling down. I mean, it was insane. And this is in the middle of the afternoon. Like now, like a couple months later, I knew why when things could be done, but just the fact that that was the day shift, and lieutenants and stuff are still there. White hats is what we had referred to them as in Indiana. The white hats were still there, and this is how they're getting down. But I get put in row 8, bunk 1B, meaning top bunk, and unfortunately that's the damn cell that is the first cell from the cops. Like, it's not directly in front of them, but it's like 2 rows over, and then there's my bunk, man. Then I had a bunkie named Brandon, who happened to be, I didn't know him. Like, we knew each other because we were from the same county. He actually grew up down the road from me, but we didn't hang around the same group of friends. We had mutual friends, but we were never ever hanging out at the same time. But gratefully, Brandon, he had a cell phone. I'm not too worried about. I'm not getting into too much of Brandon's story because that's a completely different story and a half. Brandon, though, I had a few dollars coming in. I had my family helping. Plus, I had a few other people because being who I was, that were willing to help me. But I started learning which affiliation ran what, like how many of what. So at that camp, I met maybe 2 or 3 Aryan Brotherhood members that were patched members that were legitimate people. One of them was originally from Arizona. Something happened. There was riots, and they shipped a few people. I think it was like a dozen people to Indiana at that time, and he was the last one from Arizona finishing out his sentence, and he had just a few months to go. So he was a patched Aryan member, and I don't believe it was the Aryan Brotherhood. I want to say he was the Aryan Circle or something, another outfit of Aryans. But he was a big deal in that little place. So, which he took pride in that, being the big shot in the little place. But again, we're up north. We're still, as a white person, outnumbered 10 to 2 at very least. Maybe 10 to 1.5. Every 10 black folks there are 1.5 white guys. And there may be a quarter, a very small percentage of Latino. But the Latin guys, the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, the brown, stuck together, man. Man, they were a tight outfit. And they were all, a lot of times, from different organizations. There was one, shout out to you, Mendoza. That man was the man. That man was it. He didn't have to say much. People would be bringing him $200 on store morning. He'd be the first person they'd see. If I owed him money, he told me to sit in my bunk. Me and him got that close. Sit in my bunk. I'll come and get it when I get it. Let me get done dealing with all this other BS. And, well, we were running a business together. And because me not wanting to rotate and stuff like that, because the renegade gangbanging, I was running around with him, small camp. But yeah, there were a couple Aryans. I met a Saxonite or two, which is another white affiliation, white only affiliation, anyways. But they're not as looked at to have as much hate as an Aryan Brotherhood member. So then, as far as whites, you had the Dirty White Boys. Now you have first generation, which they're the OGs of the Dirty White Boys. They've been around since Dirty White Boys started. I don't know a lot of history on them. Then you got the second generation. I met no first generation Dirty White Boys. I've never met a first generation Dirty White Boy. I have met a second generation Dirty White Boy. I think two, maybe three. I don't know if the other two were a part of second generation or third generation. If they were a part of the second generation, they were last of the second generation. And they also had something to do with the third generation. I know that much. I know they had something to do with the third generation, but if I remember correctly, it was during the change, so they were 2G big shots and 3G something. I don't know. That doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But Dirty White Boys in abundance. There were so many of them at the level 2 camp. There was a lot of them for the amount of white people we had. But it seemed to me that a lot of the Dirty White Boys wanted to be a part of a black gang. Their handshake, it wasn't like a white supremacy gang. They were just white, dirty white boys. Most of them come from dirty places. Not all of them, but a lot of them were some pretty solid dudes anyways. But the drugs, the K2, the Tucci, and the Suboxone is run rampant through the Indiana State prison system. So then, like I said, there was a couple skinheads I had met behind the wall. A couple other ones I don't think I'd ever even heard of, and that's why I'm having trouble remembering the group. There was this also, they called themselves a religious group. It was Odinism. I had met a few that just practiced religion and, sorry, coffee break. Hot coffee break. They didn't call themselves white supremacists, but a lot of them hated the opposite race. They didn't like black people. And I'm sorry, I just don't get down with the racism. You guys don't know me from Adam. And I know, trust me, I know what I look like. I can't help that this doesn't grow. If this grew, do you think I'd be spending $30 a month to shave my head and keep it clean? Keep myself fresh? No, hell no. But I do spend money on my hats. Nothing, man, if you guys had seen my old hat collection. But anyways, the Dirty White Boys were deep in the level 2 and level 1. And from what I hear in Westville Penitentiary, there's a lot of Dirty White Boys. But now that right there is going to bring me into the black gangs, because rumor has it that the Dirty White Boys, because of a certain crown that they wear, had to, over money. Everything's over money anymore. Uh, that's why I don't gangbang. Everything's over money. It's greed. And it's not over what it was originally supposed to be over. None of it is. Especially what I'm about to get into. So, the gangs I had just told you about had started in prison. And that's it. So, now, on the other side of the race, you've got black organizations, prominently black organizations, which, like I've said before, technically I'm part of, or was a part of, a black organization. I'm retired. I don't gangbang. And I'm about to tell you why. Okay? So, Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords in a whole definitely run the Indiana prison system. There's more of them than any other organization, period. I don't care what portion of the state you are. Now, up north, the amount of black versus white is much larger than it is when you go to Indianapolis area, like Plainfield, IYC, stuff like that. There's a lot more whites than there are up here. There's still a lot more blacks than there are whites. But up here, because of the Chicagoland, like I said, we have also got Gary, Indiana right next to us. The percentage it's dramatic. Like, if you Googled it, which I haven't, maybe I'll do that and you'll know. It's insane. And I'm not speaking ill on any race whatsoever, because I do not do that. Man, I have family of other race. Hell, one of my children are of another race. So, I don't dig the racism. Anyways, having been a part of a black organization, I'm extremely biased against the racism. So, a lot of times, the Gangster Disciples, per se, have so many different branches that a lot of the originals will say, because you're white, you cannot say you are a Gangster Disciple. So, therefore, subsets were created, and they were either become something else, or they'll become Latin folks. Latin folks, you can be whatever race. Yeah, I know it says Latin folks, but I know more white people in a Latin folk gang than you could ever even consider. I mean, you got, okay, like I said, you got Gangster Disciples, you got GDs, or BDs, you got GDs, BDs, you got IGDs, you've got Latin folks, so you've got 2-6, you've got SGD, you got SDs, you got Latin Dragons, you've got Latin Counts. I might have gotten that wrong. They might be under a different set, but there's 20 some odd. You got Maniacs. I could go on and on and on. I'm trying to make shorter videos, so I'm not going to go on and on and on. Now then you got, okay, that's under the 6-pointed star. They ride under the 6-pointed star. Imperial Gangsters, they aid and assist with the 6-pointed star, but actually ride under the 7-pointed crown. But they're under the 6-pointed star for the most part. All right. So then you got Almighty, or the People. So this is where some things can get confusing. Imperial gangsters, many are considered almighty because of a certain war. They took a crown, and therefore they're almighty. But you got vice lords, you've got Latin kings, you've got um, black stones, black peace stones, BPSN, Black Peace Stone Nation is what that stands for. So, in a whole, majority of the prison system is affiliates, and not are all of them real gangsters. I mean, they're validated. A majority of them are validated. Does that make them real? No, hell no, it don't. And that's why real recognizes real, and people were able to let me do my time on my time instead of on their time. Because that's how it's supposed to go. You always want the guy that has a chance to get that chance, because maybe that guy will either do something beneficial for the gang or organization, or just maybe he'll do something and come back and spend the rest of his life with us, one or the other, or he'll go outside and help us. Whatever the reason, I mean, the big dogs, a real big dog, big homie, wants his soldiers to go to school. He wants his soldiers to be educated. He doesn't want a bunch of idiots running around with guns killing kids, and that's why that shit happens. So, yeah, but there's a lot that goes on with it. I've seen more gang on gang, meaning on their own violence, than any other gang wars. Now, I have seen some where other gangs were involved to make something happen, and it ended up being a bunch of BS. But in the majority, I'd say the Gangster Disciples and their sets run the Indiana State Prison. It's just a fact, I think. And I know many would agree with me. I'm sure some are going to disagree with me. I'm sure there's going to be somebody that's part of one of these white groups that say, no, we ran that. And maybe you guys ran a group that was very tight, but you definitely didn't run the system in a whole, because without the blacks organizations, the white organizations were not able to do half of the things that were done. Business, stuff like that. Obtaining certain things, stuff like that. Because especially up north, when a guard comes in, he came off the streets of Gary. He came, or one of the local areas. But if he's a black guy, there's a very high chance, high percentage that he came from Gary, Maryville, or that area, and is or has been affiliated. And if he's not himself, his cousin or brother or dad or somebody is. And I know for a fact that one of my brothers former brothers had been a CO. And I'm not going to say his name. And I'm not going to say where he's at, because for the last 15 years, he's been making a damn income. And unfortunately, because of the position that them people are put in, them guards, them COs, they risk their lives every time they walk out of there. And sometimes if you don't do it for the inmate or convict, you're going to get yourself killed. So, And then if you're affiliated, that's your plan anyways. Now you got the plug, and you could take something you sell in the streets for $10. Now it's $100. So you do the math and think about what the gangster's going to do. The gangster that put on the badge. So you think about what they're going to do. They're going to get that money. They're going to support their family by all means necessary. But anyways, guys, I wanted to brush up on the gangs and do one last one that was 100% focus on the gangs. Oh, I do not want to leave a gang out. The 2-1 Fatals, that was another one. They were also right under the 5-pointed star, like along with the Blackstones, the Latin Kings, and all them. They're right under the 5-pointed star. The 6-pointed star is another thing, completely different, but a lot of the rules are the same, you know. And at the very beginning, they were meant for one thing. That was to unite and conquer the crap that they were going through. And you got to know, that was some crap. I mean, it's some bull crap. They went through hell. A lot of them did. So, I mean, that being said, that it wasn't started for hate and stuff like that. That's why I don't honor most of these new age gangbangers, because they're renegades. And renegade meaning that they'll throw their set up and down at the same time. It's a disrespectful thing. It's a completely disrespectful thing. Like, they're gonna say, I'm gonna claim this. I'm gonna throw up my gang sign or your gang sign, but I'm gonna throw it down too, because I want to say I'm this, but I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want. Therefore, I'm not gonna follow any of the rules. So when that happens, especially in the prison system, they get dealt with. Now, the ones I've seen deal with it the best, the two that I've seen deal with it the best, are the Aryans and the Gangster Disciples. They are very quick to violate their own person. Now, as far as Aryans, I've seen them cover their people up. I heard them of cutting one of the patches off, and the patch covered the guy's whole side. So if that really happened, I mean, hey, should have followed the rules. You know, you signed up for this, not me. Anyways, guys, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and that's another one at you. But you know it. If they ain't hating it, you ain't making it.